Welcome back with us, Dave Dulio. He's the professor of political science and the director of the Center for Civic Engagement over at the Oakland University. Professor, thank you for being with us. I have to admit, I did not see the town halls last night. Did you catch them?
I flip back and forth between the two, and as you can imagine, it's tough to catch anything when you're going back and forth.
Right, but just looking at the news clips today and the rehash of what happened, it seemed like both forums really was a reflection of each of the candidates and their styles.
Oh, I think that's on the money. It was on NBC, Donald Trump being Donald Trump. I mean, he has never shied away from his approach, which is at times combative, entertaining to some degree, and Joe Biden trying to play the maybe slow and steady wins the race character.
Do you think when they hold these forums, I don't know if they're going to debate again or not, or if that's just going to be done and we're going into, the last few weeks, although many states, including Michigan, people are currently voting. Do these actually have any type of impact on undecided voters?
Yeah, I'm not sure if how many undecided voters are watching a town hall that features one candidate. I think that my hunch is the audience on NBC was mainly Trump supporters and the audience on ABC was mainly Biden supporters.
Any surprises that came out of last night?
Not really. I mean, maybe that Joe Biden kind of came out and talked about court packing, an issue that's been dogging him for the last couple of weeks. He seemed to commit to giving his stance or being more clear than he has been in recent days before Election Day. But there was even a bit of an out in that one.
Yeah, why doesn't he just come out and say what he wants to say? I don't understand his philosophy behind it. And I know he was saying that the reason why he didn't want to talk about it last night is that would become the headline.
Well, right, and I'm with you. I take that back. I know why he doesn't want to talk about it, but he talks about it as if it's an issue that is different from other issues that are out there that he would have to take a lead on early in his administration. What to do about coronavirus, or what's his plan with that? What's his plan on healthcare? All of those issues are forward-looking as well. And he is not going to, apparently, to this point, talk about whether or not he wants to pack the court. I don't see a big difference, but he's not doing it because he doesn't want to make anybody mad. If he comes out and says we're not going to do it, that alienates the progressive wing of the party that wants to see that happen. If he says that he's going to do it, and again, let me interject there, he can't do it by himself, right? Let's be clear about that. Many of the things presidential candidates talk about, they can't do by themselves. There's been a lot of discussion about from the Biden campaign about taxes and the Trump tax cuts. He can't repeal those by himself. It would take an act of Congress that he would sign into law. The same thing applies to whether or not the number of justices on the Supreme Court would be expanded. It would take an act of Congress and he would have to sign it into law. So the other half of him not wanting to make anybody mad is he doesn't want to alienate sort of those middle of the road voters who might still be persuadable. It is not a terribly popular policy alternative when the public is polled on it. So he's trying to have it both ways. He's trying not to make anybody angry.
David Dulio with us, professor of political science and director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. And David, part of the controversy of these town halls this week was that they were scheduled at the exact same time. So those that, and maybe that plays right into those who are going to watch Joe Biden's town hall are going to watch his town hall. Those who are going to watch Donald Trump's town hall are going to watch Donald Trump's. But then you get into the networks as well, who are presumably trying to provide the voting public with all the information they need to be able to make their decision. And then you go to the candidates as well, who are butting heads about a second debate with the president's recent COVID-19 positive result and his battle with the disease, albeit briefly, and ultimately decided to do their own events instead of one debate together and come to some sort of a compromise. How does that reflect on the candidates? How does that reflect on the news networks? And how's that going to potentially impact voters?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. Everything's divisive these days, right? I mean, it's tough to find something where there's common ground. And NBC took a lot of heat from their own staff for scheduling this town hall last night at the same time as the one with Biden on ABC. And I think NBC did the right thing because, according to them, and I do remember this happening, they had a town hall with Biden a few months ago, and it was also at 8 p.m. for 1 hour. And I think the network was trying to be careful about giving both candidates the same platform, the same opportunity. If they had done it at a different time or for a longer period, it would have been uneven. And so I think that was probably the right choice from NBC.
Plus, this isn't 1978 where you had to actually get up and flip the channel to turn it. You have a remote now. You can flip it back and forth from the, luxury of your couch, or you have a DVR and you can record one or the other. And plus, you can get it the next day because they're always streaming, and allows you access to both sides as well. So that is the good thing. Can we talk a little bit about the state elections? I mean, they are throwing so much money at the state of Michigan right now between, Gary Peters and, John James's election, and not only that one, but I'm surprised at the number of ads for and against Ryan Berman.
Right. It depends where you live, whether or not you're going to see those state house ads. But if you are fortunate or maybe unfortunate to live in that district, you're getting bombarded with ads that you wouldn't necessarily think are coming. But you're absolutely right. The U.S. Senate race is getting incredible attention from across the country, with money pouring in to the candidates' campaigns themselves, but also from both party committees as well as outside interest groups that are trying to have a say in the race. I'll be very interested to see what the total dollar figure is spent on this race when we get that later this year. It's going to be a huge number.
And just think, all that money, if they weren't spending it on their campaigns and they actually put it towards issues and problems within the country, it could solve a lot of things.
Sure, and in the 2016 cycle, so the last presidential cycle, that's the comparison we should make. We were approaching $6 billion spent on all races all year. That's a lot. You're right. That's a lot of money that could go for PPE, that could go for technology to help kids who need a better internet connection at home so that they can learn during a pandemic more efficiently and effectively. But we're also in a country that has the First Amendment that has been it's been decided for 40 years almost since a famous case in 1976 called Buckley versus Vallejo, that people are free, basically, this is a paraphrase, right? People are free to spend as much as they like to try and get elected and to try to influence who gets elected. It falls under the freedom of speech.
David Dulio with us from Oakland University, professor of political science and the director of the Center for Civic Engagement. Back on the national scale, we also began the Supreme Court confirmation hearings this week for Amy Coney Barrett, and that's kind of taken, surprisingly enough, a back seat with all the other national politics stories that we've had this week from the president and from Joe Biden, especially with the town halls. Give us an update on that process. Has we seen any surprises so far in the confirmation hearing or anything that should be of note to people from the candidate or from those that are interviewing or grilling this candidate as she's getting ready to potentially be confirmed to the Supreme Court? Yeah,
not really. It's pretty much gone according to plan, or according to how from the Republican side anyway, or it's met expectations, right? I think that everybody knew that Judge Coney Barrett would come in incredibly well prepared and be ready to face Senate questioning. Everybody knew that Republican senators would do their level best to make it clear that she's going to be confirmed and that she's a brilliant jurist, et cetera, and that Democrats would try and do what they could to knock her down a couple of notches, and in addition call the process a sham and try to maybe delegitimize it a little bit. But she performed, I think everybody would agree, very, very well. I think the one of the highlights of the questioning was when she was asked if she had any notes, and she said, "I have this notepad," and she was asked to hold it up, and it was blank, right? So she was it was quite a contrast, put it that way, between Judge Barrett, who was there with no notes, no binders, no briefing books, nothing, and all the senators had all of their binders and all of their charts and their graphs, and she just did it from memory, which pretty impressive.
Yeah, I've only been dipping in here and there, and every time I've tuned in, she's definitely held her own against the line of questioning. Plus, there don't seem to be any bombshells coming out. It's not like what we went through with Kavanaugh at all.
Correct. And she's going to be confirmed unless something crazy happens in the next 2 weeks. The committee is going to vote. The Senate Judiciary Committee is going to vote on her nomination on the 22nd, I believe, so next Thursday. And that'll be a party line vote, I imagine. That will send the nomination to the floor of the Senate. There will be some debate, and that will, I think, culminate the next week, maybe a week later, a couple days after that, and she'll be confirmed probably by the end of this month.
David Dulio with us, professor of political science at Oakland University, director of their Center for Civic Engagement as well. And when we talk about Judge Coney Barrett and her likely at this point inevitable nomination, not nomination, but confirmation to the Supreme Court of the United States, we also got to talk about her stance as what's known as an originalist. The letter of the law is as it was written and as it was originally intended. For those that are not familiar with that terminology or don't understand how that maybe is applicable in the modern sense, because these laws, a lot of these laws were enacted at different times throughout our history. How does that ideology as a judge, how does that match up to the world that we're living in, keeping those documents as they're originally intended, but with the intention, but with the adjustment for the way our modern society works?
Well, I think we've got to wait and see what the kind of decisions that she will engage in, that she will write, the kind of opinions that she will write. But to answer your question specifically, right, originalists are those who argue that what's in the Constitution is in the Constitution, and we should read those words literally, and go back to what the framers were thinking when they wrote the Constitution, and refer to notes that were taken at the Constitutional Convention, refer to arguments about the Constitution like the Federalist Papers. What were the framers thinking? What did they have in mind? What did they want the Constitution to mean? And of course, the trick is to get that document to live for 240 some years, right? And to make it applicable today. The Constitution in many areas is incredibly vague. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, because it in both instances, it's left up to interpretation, right? We have to rely on judges today to interpret what those words mean. And some, like the originalists, would say, well, that it means what it meant back then. It means what the words are. And others who would subscribe to Another philosophy, you might call it the living constant philosophy, would say, well, that's all fine and dandy, but what is that? How do we update that language for today?
So you also are the director for the Center for Civic Engagement, and you've had some great talks and programs recently. Anything else on the agenda coming up before the election?
Absolutely. We've had, and thanks for the opportunity to plug it. We've had a really great session with Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson on civility in politics. And just this last Monday, we had a talk by a guy named Stan Greenberg, who is a pollster from the DC area, who coined the term Reagan Democrats in the 1980s here in Southeast Michigan in Macomb County. If folks are interested and weren't able to attend them, they're both linked on our Facebook page, which is at OUCCE. And you can also find our next event, which is going to be next Thursday at 5 p.m. We're doing a series this semester called Office Hours, where we feature different faculty to talk about different topics of interest. Next Thursday at 5 p.m. is going to be one on an election preview. So myself, two other colleagues, John Klemansky and Nicole Matthew, will take audience questions about what to expect on Election Day, what we might look forward to between next Thursday and November 3rd.
I was able to catch some of the talk with Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson. It was a great session. So thank you all for even coming up with it and then having the discussion. So again, that's on your Facebook page. People can dip into that quickly. Anything we didn't touch on that you want to get out there, or we're just going to ride this storm out until Election Day and have you back on then?
I think your metaphor is better than the one I was going to say. It's a sprint to the finish between now and Election Day, but the ride the storm out might be better.
Well, Professor, as always, thank you for being with us. We do appreciate it. And we'll talk to you, if not before the elections, definitely after the election. And again, everyone, if you do have a few moments, check them out on Facebook. It's Oakland University Center for Civic Engagement. And listen to the talks that you provided to the public. They were great. So thank you again for all that you're doing. And happy election to you.
Same to you. Thanks for having me.